Hello and welcome to step 4 of Hobby Boss's M1070 HET, Heavy Equipment Transporter kit. And I'm going to walk you through putting together this set of axles. So the last episode we put together step 3, which is a transaxle. Took about 26 minutes. Let's see if I can burn through this a little bit quicker now that I know what I'm doing. There are a few more and a few different parts on this one than the other one. So it's important to keep your parts straight, keep your axles straight, and pay attention to what's going on. For example, I'm not keeping track of which part is which, but it looks like E49 has the square and round dots versus the large holes are in E50. Want to keep that figured out and straight. Putting K21 on. Notch should be up. So I'm starting to think, once I get this built, what am I going to put on it? Well, I served in the Minnesota National Guard, and one of the things that I got to help with for one duty assignment, short duty assignment, was helping with the replacement for the M981 Fist V, which became the M7B Fist. Mostly what I did was they had a diagram out on the floor and we were trying to figure out the internal setup for the parts. But I'm thinking it might be fun to do that as a load. Now, there is no kit of that out there, but I have been doing some 3D CAD work, and I'm thinking that that might be a good candidate for me. So, again, line everything up sometimes, and this is what you got to be ready for. I've got all the parts on the correct way, the axles in the proper place, but for whatever reason, it's just a little bit off. I'm looking down the hole, and it's just not quite square, which is weird for round holes. But the point being that there's no way I can put the peg through both set of holes and have it be straight without doing some sort of surgery or cleaning or whatever. So I'm doing the minimum that I need to, but right now it just doesn't want to go. There's just too much extra. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to clean out this side of it. Now it may just be a little bit of flash that I'm not recognizing, but like I said, start out doing little bit by little bit until you get the peg through. The worst thing you could do is force it and snap the peg, or clip the plastic on the ring and make that break. So I put that in. I have my metal tack. It looks like that should go through, and it looks like the model is depending on you to use a lot of friction to keep some of these parts in place. There we go. Now, as in the instructions, no cement for putting E22 on, no cement for putting the tack in. For now. I'm not sure how comfortable I am. It seems like it will eventually fall out, but for right now, I'm good with it. I'm going to take D33 and the small part, the I don't even know what to call it, the coupler, goes towards the transmission housing, not the round cap. Now that I've put that in place, in this case I'm going to put the glue on afterwards. Same thing with D32 on the other side. These are handed parts, so be careful where you put what. They should be pointing with the, I don't even know what to really call them, divots or couplers or whatever you want to get at. But anyways, the part that sticks out proud looks like a rod might go through it or something like that. They should be pointing inwards. Now I'm going to go to the far side over here, making sure that I put this on with the small coupler hole in the right spot. Once again, it looks like this needs a little bit of reaming out, and we can all be butterfingers. So I'm going to just ream these out, and this is a good point right here. Careful with what you've just glued. You know, don't get in too much of a hurry, or parts will start to get moved or come off, or you put fingerprints where you don't want it, or get shavings where you don't want them. I'm moving along a little too fast. I want things to be good, not necessarily quick. So this time, and I would recommend, highly recommend, that you put the plastic pin, so in this case E21 or E22 for the other side, I put them in first so you can put them in solid, get them in, and then when you put the metal pin in, that takes the brunt of the stress, if there is any, putting that in. In this case, no issue. Got it in without a problem. I still worry that these parts up here, these plates, are going to somehow unsquare from J17, J18, not sure what to call them, brake housings maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Flipping this over, you have the two large holes underneath. They get each of K22. Looks like they're mirrored and generic, so they don't go in any particular direction that I can see. There's no forward or back, and there's no left or right. However, I am checking the fit just to be sure that there isn't something. And again, check all the parts that you've already glued on, because I keep hitting it with my fingers when I'm doing this. Feels like there's a lot of pressing and pushing and doing just to get these simple parts on, but it'll all be worth it in the end, right? Or so we believe. Overall, I will have to say that it doesn't look like, again, there's a forward or a back for these parts, these K22s underneath. Their fit is adequate. Looks like there's a little wiggle room in there, but I do not know enough about the prototype, the real vehicle, to sit and say if that's a problem or not. So we're through this part right here. Moving on. I'm going to take E46. It's got the little nub on top that goes right in here. Put it on. And hopefully not knock it off. Next, like yesterday, I'm going to push part H7 through K19 in this case, as best I can. There it went. And at this point, I'm going to put a little glue along the edge. To get that started. And then let that sit while I do the other side over here. And unlike last night, I don't have to push it through with the back of a paintbrush or anything like that. It actually just kind of slips through. So there we go. I've got those built. Now taking my part, and again being careful not to hit things that have been glued and are mobile or still not completely set. In particular, these two parts on top, D32 and D33. I'll take this right here and got to put it on the right way. So again, the pins that you pushed through are on the inside, so that the groove on the top matches up with the peg that's in the brake housing. I'm going to call it J18 in this case, so that it all pushes together. But what I'm noticing is that with that plug there, there's a little bit of a rim, and I think that's getting in the way. I could be wrong. I guess I'm wrong. It just is a nice solid press fit on there, and I just needed to push on there. So I'm kind of gripping it right in front of the housing, trying hard to put the stress on the bottom pin rather than anywhere else. That metal pin can take it a lot more than anything else, but I've got to be careful not to stress out any of the other plastic. Like, because I'm doing this, I worry about the pin, the plastic pin. I worry about how much I might be scrunching, again, this part right here. It takes some patience. Some people who are not trying to do the whole step in one night may want to glue some of the parts on and then let it sit for a day to really set well, and then put more of the parts on. I'm willing to fiddle around with it here to get it all done in one shot, because today I'm impatient. Let's see how this side goes. And now that I know what I'm doing, I'm just gluing this part on without too much trouble. And it feels like there might be just a little bit of pushing that has to be done to get it, like the little ridge on the edge of that pin to go over. Something like that. It's not quite as square as I want, but it is definitely on. Let you look at it, see what you think. I'm okay with that for now. Any problems that come up can be dealt with later. So, moving on, part J15 gets glued onto part F28. This time there is a little positive set with a notch and a peg, as well as a round base on part F28. So that's a little bit better than last night when we were putting it together and we didn't quite have that positive setup. So these cylinders that went on did not sit quite so well, or at least not as positively as I wanted. Do the same thing over here. This time I'm going to put the glue on part F29 and then put the piece on just to show. Now, doing it that way, some of the glue got on the side and got a little bit on my finger, a little bit on the plastic. Don't want that to look poor. Got to be careful. So I use a little glue to smooth it out. Now I've got to be twice as careful because this is gluey. Alright, now that those are glued, I'm going to take the axle again, and looking at my work, or my instructions, I'm going to flip this around so I can put H3 on. H3 goes into this little square on the top here. and it might take a little bit of work to get it in. It fits well and contours well, but it's a little tight. So I would get the piece in place really good, then look at it from front to back, kind of set it in. It's not perfect, but it is good. Put some extra glue in there to soften it up a little bit more. So while that's softening up the glue, I'm going to put H15 in here. And again, as the instructions show it, I'm going to put it flat, so to speak, in comparison to the axle, running along the line that the axle runs rather than up and down or at some other set angle. I'm going to look at part H3 again. It looks like it's solid, and due to the shape of the part itself, it's got kind of a bit of a lean back. So I'm happy with how that sets. Down to the last step. So last night we learned that off of E14 the smaller pin goes through the hole like so, and then this larger pin is meant to go in right here through parts J18 and into K19. We found that out last night. This is a little tricky, and I'm not gonna kid. I like the idea first of not putting it on the F28 J15 part, but working it through here first to make sure that that pin gets through. Now I'm very carefully trying to do this. I don't want to push too hard, and again, a little bit of trouble with that. So I'm going to take my knife, bore that out just a little bit. This is a little bit harder because I've got it all placed together. Okay, first one's through. Now I'm finding that for whatever reason it's not quite square on the other side, but I've still got to get that through. So there we go. It's not fully up to the edge. If you look at last night's work, it went right up to the edge, and we can square this up a little bit better now that everything's dry if we want. That's important. But for this one, I've got it pushed all the way in, and there's still, oh, there, it punched through the outside of that. Okay, so it goes all the way through K19 in this case. So you just got to kind of give it some oomph to get it all the way through. I'm not terrible comfortable. Oh, well, this is nice on this side. Went right through, no problem. So I have not glued anything yet, but they are in. And now I'm going to take the brake part and start, or the cylinder, sorry, not the brake part. And I'm going to start figuring out what to do. So the instructions say that when this is on all the way, it should fit into this hole right here, and that should fit in the back. And then this part should fit on the arm. So this is not glued in yet, but this gives you an idea of what they're talking about. And it looks like there's some tension with this. that it doesn't quite want to sit square overall. It wants to turn a little bit, and it looks like it's because of the angle or the setup between this particular part here, E14, and the way that this sits square on there. So what I'm going to do at this point in time is start putting the glue in my little joints, so that not only does this start to set, but it also melts the plastic a little bit and acts as a little bit of lubrication for trying to get everything set square. Now, I am still being careful with how I touch everything, and I'm going to have to go back through and double check. But one thing that I can do is take my forceps, and if I think this will help, push that over a little bit, because I just want this to sit on there and glue down and be nice and positive. And for whatever reason, we're not getting that. So I will keep working with this right now. And we're already at 21 minutes. So it just takes some time working on these axle pieces. I mean, there are a few parts and it's a little busy. Okay, that is now positively glued. I'm happy with that setup. So once again, I'm going to push that back, put that on. This time I'm going to glue that on first. Put the glue in there. Glue the parts on. Like so. And then I'm going to check and see how this lines up. And actually, I'm happy with how it lines up, so I'm going to push that like so. Get that on the pin and set this up. Try and square it though. And that'll involve, again, trying to square this up too. It doesn't take much to set things off square. And I'm not sure on the real vehicle if everything is square or if just through regular wear and tear these mounts for the cylinders might be a little dinged up or off center, or you know, anything that might just make it a little bit more worn, and I'm being too concerned about it. But in my lack of knowledge, I'm falling back on some of my basic skills, which are, hey, I want things to be square. And the final step here, now that all this is done with the axle set up in this particular way, the steering column goes on, and this is one where it goes underneath rather than over the top, at least in that direction. So it looks a little odd, but that is correct. Put some glue and a little on top where the pin went through, like so. And complicated as is, step 4 is done. So again, take your time with this. It takes a little bit of work, but in the end, now we have 2 of the 4 axles done. See you for step 5.